Welcome back to the Banners broadcast. I'm Chris Grenham, and with me, as always, Nick Gelso.
Yo!
Nick, what's up,
bro?
man? How's it going?
So I'm just packing up my away travel suitcases, man.
There it is.
Getting ready for the Christmas trip. You got to check out these. You got to check out Away Travel. Awaytravel.com/CLNS for a huge discount. Go to awaytravel.com. I tell you, all the CLNS reporters are using Away Travel now because, dude, I need usually 3 suitcases. I could put everything in my carry-on with this.
It's a no-brainer.
Awaytravel.com/CLNS. Okay, let's talk hoops.
And one of my roommates got his girlfriend an away travel suitcase. It's pretty awesome. Those things are legit.
They're awesome.
But
I mean, you can plug your phone into it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
If you travel, which you do, Grenham, you travel a lot to cover the team.
Yeah,
you know it without doubt. You get into the airport and your phone battery is dead. So it's have
automatic.
Charger,
you could charge it for 24 hours beforehand.
For some reason, the airport
you're guaranteed to lose battery in an airport. 100%. So, speaking of airports, I was down in D.C. Earlier this week for Celtics Wizards. Obviously,
good game.
Great game. We saw an unbelievable head-to-head matchup between John Wall and Kyrie. Towards the end there, it really became one-on-one for a little while.
It's fun.
What are your thoughts here? I mean, because I do kind of want to look at both sides. Of course, it was a great overtime win, and Kyrie hit 2 dagger threes, which was amazing. But I do want to look at the other side because the Celtics really had a lot of trouble stopping John Wall down the road there. He was putting his head down, going north and south, and they could not stop him. Sure, a lot of that has to do with a lack of depth at the 5. They don't really have a rim protector, but still, it was pretty impressive. Do you think that concerns you at all or not?
Yeah,
really?
Because I think the backcourt, defending the backcourt has been an issue all season.
Yeah.
Right? Guards have gone off on the Celtics
CC Trey
all season.
Burke.
Come on, yeah. Geez. The Knicks, come on. I mean, it seems like every game a backcourt player was just going off. And so it's concerning, especially when you have Marcus Smart out there, who I don't believe – he guarded all 5 positions, I think, against the Wizards.
He did. He was guarding the 5 down the road.
Yeah.
Brad Stevens said after the game he's officially done it all. That guy's
He's
amazing.
done it all, which people forget. I don't remember which series it was last year, but he played – or maybe in the Isaiah Thomas era, he played 5 in defense in some of those series as well. So we know Marcus.
What other guard in the league can do that? That's so awesome.
Nobody since Dennis Johnson, probably. He's
the best. But I think it's interesting. So Aaron Baines started on Wednesday because Al Horford missed another game. When they have their depth at the 5, I think a lot of that stuff you were seeing with John Wall, just putting his head down and getting to the rim so easily, is probably gone because you can have a guy like Marcus Smart focus on the perimeter rather than playing the 5. And I think that probably prevents it. So you like what you're seeing out of this starting lineup? We've got 7 in a row here. It seems to be the magic potion that's really turned this ship around, huh?
I'm still on the fence in regards to, a really high-quality team. You're still looking at the Pelicans as their best competition until they play the Bucks close to Christmas. So
bite your tongue. They played the Bulls, Nick.
Oh, damn it! But that's an L. That's a loss.
Was that difficult to watch? I don't know if you watched. It was. There was a couple plays. I know Mark D'Amico put the clip on Twitter, but there was a few inbounds plays where the Bulls were arms at their sides, standing around looking. You ever been to a youth basketball game once you've grown up,
yes.
and you just watch kids who clearly don't want to be there? It's like watching youth soccer and there's a kid picking flowers at midfield.
They should have lowered the rims.
Oh,
it
man.
was pathetic. It really was. And it makes the whole NBA look bad because that clip, D'Amico's in particular, it went around so fast.
Yeah.
And it just compounds the notion that no one plays defense in professional basketball.
Yeah, which is so far from the case.
It's a shame for a franchise that, obviously all their championships came in the 90s, but if you go back in time, that's a storied franchise with some great Hall of Fame players, and now this may be rock bottom for the Bulls.
Yeah,
even
there was a full-blown mutiny going on. You think about fan bases, like how they react. Imagine that kind of thing going on with the Celtics. Oh my God.
No, people would be throwing things on the court. The booing would be out of control. It would be. I mean, we probably came closest to that when it was the Fleet Center and some of those horrific teams. I mean, nothing was worse than MVP chants for Kobe at TD Garden.
Tough.
I mean,
And we saw that at Verizon, not Verizon Center, at Capital One Arena on Wednesday. Yeah. So think about this. You're put yourself in John Wall's shoes. You've had a really tough go here with this team this year. Like they've been in a pretty dark place, yelling at each other at practices, calling out front office members after practice, all that kind of stuff. And then you come out and you're playing the Celtics, one of the best teams in the conference, and you have your best all-around game of the season, like bar none. You're carrying your team into overtime and you're keeping them in it. And then by the end of the game, you're watching Kyrie Irving at the foul line with your stadium chanting MVP at him. Like, how depressing is that?
That's just it's depressing. And I mean, again, I wasn't there when it happened with Kobe, but it still resonates with Celtics fans. That is considered, that Red Auerbach's death, that whole period there is considered, the lowest point. And the 19 game wins, losing streak, Pierce giving, I was just a bad era.
Yeah, it was a dark time.
So
thankfully, though, we're past that.
Yeah, we're past that. Thank God. I mean, it didn't look that way a couple weeks ago.
Oh man, that 10-10. I don't want to say they were at a breaking point, but Kyrie has said it a lot of times. They were not in a good spot, and thankfully they've been able to turn it around. They started having fun again, which he has said. I think in every single press scrum he's been in for the last 2.5 weeks, he has said to make sure that we're having fun. Again and again. I mean, I think it's important. I think it just prevents a lot of pressing.
It's so important. I mean, I'm a body language guy. You knew during that 10-10 streak that it wasn't fun on the court. It wasn't fun off the court. It certainly wasn't fun in the locker room. And then Jackie Mack, as usual, shed a ton of light on the Jaylen Brown situation and how much Marcus Smart has stepped up. So, yeah, man. I mean, it was ugly, and even for me, I mean, I had them at 500 in December to begin with. Everybody thought it was crazy, second year in a row. But even for me, I was getting at a point where I was saying, okay, maybe this is going to have to be a trade. And I'm going to be honest, Chris, I'm still not out of that yet. It's not. I know
you seem less convinced than a lot of others that have been around the team. Not necessarily worried, but you're not convinced that all of these
I mean, I like the body language. I think that the intensity, the look is in their eyes. So all that is leading to in the right direction. Nothing's better for a struggling team with some poor morale than a couple wins. But I'm not going to really feel great about the team until they convincingly beat a contending team. And then also once they need to reintegrate quite a few players. And don't forget, at the start of the season, that was my big thing. It was like, listen, you can't reintegrate Kyrie and Gordon and expect it to be all rosy. And we may fall into that situation again as they're reintegrating Al. And tonight, I think, or as we're recording this on Friday, I think Gordon will end up playing. I don't think he was on the injured list.
No,
the injured list has looked like
it was a novel for a little while.
It was a novel, So I think the panic is gone. The concern for what's going on is still there, and I still think there's just too much talent. I know it sounds crazy, but I still think there might be just a little too much talent on the team. Like I legitimately think Stevens can rest one All-Star every game, and it wouldn't hurt the Celtics. I mean, and then I also
just real quick. I mean Jeff Goodman said it last week when he came on the show. He talked to Danny Ainge, and Danny said they're almost better off with one guy out of the lineup every night.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm with that. And the flip side, or my last concern, is if you look at Stevens' tenure and what he's gotten out of players in the past 5 years, they have played. I mean, exceeded all expectations, but that's the key. They have been put in underdog situations. He's always had to manage scrappy. He's always had to manage teams that had to be super scrappy, play from behind to win, chip on their shoulder. And I really think that this was an adjustment this year because going in, they were the favorites. And if you didn't hear it on radio and television or podcast, you certainly heard it coming out of the locker room because they were bragging enough. And now it's at a point where, we're going to be reintegrating these players, and it's going to say, okay, can Stevens get the kind of energy and scrappiness out of this team when they're at full speed? So that's the next question.
Real quick, before we get to Coach Nick of B-Ball Breakdown, I just want to hit one more quick thing. Al Horford, of course, he's got this lingering patellar tendonitis. I won't even try to say the long diagnosis that Stevens said on Wednesday. But what was
like trying
your
to say
move?
Giannis's name.
Seriously. But what would your move be? I'm kind of in favor of I don't want to say shutting him down, but at least keeping him out until 2019. I don't see the point in rushing him back right now. That's an injury that really lingers. And I think you're going to need, if you want to make a deep playoff run, you need Al Horford healthy. And you don't need to rush him back in December or January for, the long stretch. Clearly they're fine without him right now, but they are going to need him down the road. So do you think would you side on the portion of maybe shutting him down for a little bit here?
I mean, looking at the January schedule, that would be the time to do it. Even if you play him, short answer for this, which is rare for me. If I were Stevens, I would place Horford strategically. So, they're playing Toronto, I think, in January. Yeah, he's on the court that game and the game before and the game after, but maybe you rest him up until that point. Because so right now it's really easy after winning 7 games to say, rest Al Horford until the All-Star break, which you may be right, but it's easy to say that. But if the Celtics start falling again in the standings, and I believe the standings actually do matter this year in the Eastern Conference, if they start falling in the standings, at that point, he may be forced to bring Al back. And then the other side of it is championship teams, and if they hold Al out till the All-Star break, it doesn't really make a difference on what I'm about to say. But championship teams need to have good run going into the playoffs. So you need him healthy and back really March, April, and then, of course, the playoffs. So if it takes resting him till the All-Star break and they're winning, why not? I think Stevens just rides it out.
Okay, that's fair. I guess we'll have to. I think the All-Star break's probably a little far. I was thinking more like second week of January, I would say. I think All-Star break might be a little far, but again, it all depends on how they treat this and how it goes. Of course, again and again, everyone talks about the luxury that the Celtics have with their depth. So that depth allows them to take their time with an injury like this. It also allows them to take their time with a center like Robert Williams in developing him. They don't need to push him into the rotation. So I think it all goes back to that luxury and the options that they have, which a lot of teams don't. So
could I piss off half of Celtics Twitter right now and just say that the Time Lord thing has gotten to me more than BWA.
You don't like the Time Lord thing.
I don't like when
you're stepping in front of a freight train, man. Be careful.
I know I am, and you can tweet me at CLNS_Nick and totally rip me apart. I love it. But it's gotten to a point where when Scal's calling him the Time Lord and not even knowing what it means,
Rachel Nichols is calling him the
Rachel Nichols is calling him the Time Lord. And truthfully, this is like Celtics Twitter, Celtics Reddit, and they're having a debate over what it means. And so I'm going on my feed to look at, what's going on, and I'm seeing clocks and time. It's just like, come on, dude. All right, enough.
There is, to make it clear, there's no debate over what this means. He was late early on. He was late for a couple things.
But that's not what the Reddit guys are saying, Chris.
Well, no, listen. He was late for a couple things and all this stuff. So everyone around the media made this big deal that it was a really big issue, and this Time Lord nickname came out from making fun of the people who were making it a big deal.
I think that's part of what annoys me too, Chris, because it was a big issue. When you draft a player and he doesn't show up for his press conference, misses the flight to train or summer league, and then gets pulled off the court in his first summer league appearance, I think that equates to he should be getting a big deal put on him by the media.
You're feeding into this nickname. You're feeding into it. This is it. This is what they want. This is what they want.
And you know what? Like I said, tweet me. You could kill me. I don't really care. I'm not going to fall back from it. It's annoying. Anything. It's like saying this. All right. I liked. I don't know. I'll pull out some song. I don't know. I liked. We Will Rock You the first 10 times I heard it, but when I have to hear it 10 times a day, I want to bang my head off a wall, right? So every time I go on Twitter, I have to see pictures of Photoshop pictures of Williams holding a clock. It's like, come on, dude.
It's gonna. I don't want to, be the bearer of bad news here, Nick.
You're mixing words here, Chris.
I don't think it's going away anytime soon. Danny Ainge wants Lob Williams, which is actually not bad on his portion, but
that.
It's not going away. Let me give you one just final description from Celtics Reddit about this nickname, just to make sure you got it, just to make sure our listeners have it. A lot of people are misunderstanding the nickname. It's related to him being late. This is from Celtics Reddit. But it's important to note that it's not making fun of him for being late. It's making fun of the people who thought it was a really, really, really big deal that he was late.
Basically, Chris, what that is, let's wrap that whole Reddit post up, put it in an envelope, write Santa Claus on it, and send it to Robert Williams, because it's that poster saying, please, for God's sake, pick Time Lord as your nickname so I can say I created it.
Well, the craziest thing, in my opinion, about this whole Time Lord situation, first off, on the record, I love this nickname. I'm all in with Celtics Twitter. I'm a big fan. However, much to your demise, I'm a big fan. But the craziest part is he came in to the NBA with the nickname Booba. So like
Booba. I don't know what
he had a great nickname. Like he had one. And that's the funniest part to me, is that they pushed that aside, came up with Time Lord, and it is stuck. So
let me tell you, before you go to the here's the thing. Now, I would say 7 times out of 10, I thoroughly enjoy Celtics Twitter. I thoroughly enjoy the Reddit nonsense. But it's those other 3 times where it's like, dude, get out of your mother's basement, go get laid, go watch a movie, do something, go out with your friends, do something non-basketball related.
Oh, Nick,
so
you're asking for it, man.
Have a life.
You're asking for it.
Hey, tweet it at them. And a lot of these guys are my friends. I love them. But, I mean, this is just ridiculous already. Like, come on.
All right, let's get to Coach
Nick. There's so much more to talk about, Chris.
From people, but is there though? Because people really love talking about Robert Williams. Unfortunately, we didn't
talk about the Robert Williams.
We didn't talk about Robert Williams with Coach Nick, but Coach Nick was great. So let's get to him. And Nick, I will see you at the Garden. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at 1in100. Go to 1in100.co for your chance to win killer Patriots, Celtics, Bruins, or even concert tickets throughout New England for the price of beer or a large pizza. Go to 1in100.co for your chance to win today. All right, and now we welcome in Coach Nick of BBALLBreakdown and the BBALLBreakdown podcast. Nick, thanks for coming on with us this morning.
My pleasure. I'm in.
Are you in?
You're always.
So a couple weeks ago on your YouTube channel, we'll start off with this. You had a video, pretty interesting video, talking about the Celtics' problems. Obviously, 3 weeks ago, there was a lot of them. They were sitting at 10-10, and there was a lot of issues. Let's just revisit that. Of course, they've improved to this point after the last 7 games. But what were you looking at 3 weeks ago that they could have changed, and what have you seen over this 7-game span that they have adjusted, and kind of the reason for this change?
You know, there's a lot of things, but as a team goes, sometimes you just need a better hierarchy in the offense, and you need the guy who's the alpha guy. And so what it just feels like to me, and I'm not even sure I could show advanced analytics that would prove it, but just my visceral feeling when I watch the Celtics is that they're at their best when Kyrie Irving isn't trying to be a playmaker and a traditional point guard. When he's being a lead guard, trying to score and be aggressive, it opens up everything for everybody else. And when he's not doing that, it kind of just feels like no one is sort of sure how they want to go about doing things. They're too nice, and it doesn't work as well. So we saw that in the Wizards game where he was doing his, Steph/KD impersonation. And, that's what you kind of need. And I think that's what we're going to need. Now, the question is, can he sustain that? Because it's a different mindset to be like, I'm going to go out there and score 27 every night. And if he can do that, and he can, sort of get away from maybe thinking like, I got to be nice to Gordon Hayward, I got to be nice to Tatum. If he can get a little bit more like that, then I think that they'll be better in the long run. And we shall see.
Coach,
so,
I'm going to hit this back to you. One of Chris's big, criticisms or I guess observations has been that Kyrie, the Celtics have played much better with Kyrie off the ball. Are you saying from being more offensive minded, would you think he would do better off the ball and Marcus Smart is helping him do that?
Well, the basis of the offense the Celtics run is sort of like, it's not going to be a traditional, he's going to bring the ball up, hold up a fist, and wait for a big man to come screen on top of, a guy's space. So, there's always going to be some sort of handoff action into a ball screen, a lot of movement, and then they want to make sure they drive and kick. So you're never really going to see that traditional, on-ball guard kind of thing really anyway, in theory. So, yeah, I think that, for me, it's just him being aggressive, getting the basket, doing his incredible finishes, which, by the way, if they don't go in, tend to open up, offensive rebounds to the team. So, that's really where I feel like they're good. Yeah, coming off of those kind of actions, which I guess would mean off ball for sure.
So in terms of getting to the rim, since Jaylen Brown returned, of course, he didn't play the other night because he was sick, but he's been getting to the rim much better since he's returned from his lower back injury. Earlier in the season, he was settling for a lot of long twos like Jason Tatum was and settling for a lot of jump shots when he's been a guy who in college and early in his career thrived at getting to the rim. Do you think that's going to be kind of centric to his game going forward here? Do you think it's temporary? Is that going to be, a centerpiece of his game?
Absolutely, and he is the quintessential slasher, right? Like, in this day and age, there are people that they kind of do both. Like Scottie Pippen didn't shoot threes until much later in his career. It just wasn't going to be a thing for him. And then Brown is sort of in that same mold, but he can shoot the three, and he has the ability to kind of knock it down. But there's no question he should set up the three with the threat of the drive first. And he's so athletic that that's going to be his game.
So much of his offense is predicated on success because he has a tendency, still being young, to hang his head. So I think it is so important for him to get in the paint, draw fouls, connect on some good drive, slashing, that kind of thing, instead of starting at the 3-point line, struggling, and then hanging his head. Coach, you had it in your video. You said Jaylen. I don't know how. I don't remember how adamant you were about it, but you said it. Jaylen probably would do better off the bench. Talk to us about that, because it has seemed to work out marvelously since Jaylen has gone to the bench. So,
it wasn't even like I was looking at lineups and looking at net ratings and like, oh, look at that, he's much better there. I think it was probably related a little bit more towards the Kyrie thing, where it was like, you need to get someone like Marcus Smart in there who could run the point a little bit more than, certainly Jaylen Brown would, and get, Kyrie off ball. But it would just sort of like be another guy who isn't necessarily looking to score as much, although they put Morris in the starting lineup, which is funny because he's probably looking to score even more than Brown. But I also felt like Brown against the bench players would also be better just by overwhelming athletic ability. And it was just, I don't even know. It's like one of those senses. I'm like, gosh, there's just something about the way that starting lineup looks that it just feels like he's the guy who needs to go to the bench. And probably he's the guy that might accept that more. I like Jason Tatum would never accept going to the bench, I don't think. Yeah. And that's an interesting dilemma there. So I kind of just feel like that was sort of how it all fit in together. And, sometimes you get lucky. I doubt they're watching. You never know if Zarin is watching my stuff. But
I think he is. Zarin, he's geeky enough to watch all your vids.
Sure, he's a friend of the breakdown. So
yeah, he's a friend of the breakdown. You never know.
Sticking with that second unit, of course, Gordon Hayward has also joined Jaylen Brown back there, and they've created a pretty good trio at the top with Terry Rozier, Jaylen Brown, and Hayward, kind of going back to the off-ball, on-ball sort of thing. Of course, it's not as set as you said. It's not like a college offense where there's one guy bringing the ball up and there's a high ball screen. But if Gordon Hayward can be that primary ball handler, Terry Rozier can work off the ball, and then Jaylen can float along the perimeter in the early shot clock, I think that's where they're most effective. What do you think of Terry Rozier on ball, off ball? Do you think he's more effective off the ball?
It's been an interesting, thing with him just because I liked him so much better last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, we all did.
With him, it's interesting. He kind of on ball probably is better, right? Like I feel like he at his best, when we've seen him at his best, he is breaking the team down, breaking the defender down off of the pick and roll, finding a man or finishing. So, that would probably be best for him. And then I have to check his shooting splits, but as far as I can tell, I don't think he's shooting well from 3-point range this year. Am I crazy? Wow. So, that's never really, certainly, having him spot up and be that guy is not the thing you want to see him do. So you want him to come in. Yeah, he's shooting 37% about average. So it's not bad, but he seems to me at his best when he's really just with the ball in his hands.
All right, Coach. Now we've determined the starting lineup is working right now, and Brown, Hayward coming off the bench seems to be working. Of course, the Celtics haven't played vicious opponents yet, but we know by the playoffs, the Celtics are not going to bring Gordon Hayward off the bench. I'd be shocked. So how does, put on your coaching hat here, which you kind of live that. So
it's already on.
Beat Brad Stevens. How do you reintegrate a guy like Gordon and not kill the chemistry again? And when do you do it?
Well, the thing with like Jaylen Brown saying like if he went to the bench, like I just sense that maybe he wouldn't throw a big hissy fit. Well, if there's someone who really wouldn't throw a big problem, would be Hayward. He would probably even still accept it if it's working and they're winning. So that's gonna be the biggest question: is will Stevens ever want to disrupt it if it continues to work this way? But I have a feeling that when they start playing some of the better teams, the Marcus Smart and Marcus Morris pairing in the starting lineup might prove a little bit suboptimal. And that might be his opening to be like, okay, great, let's get him back in there. And again, if there's any other player or if there's any player in the league that's a poster child for like fitting in and not making waves, it's going to be Hayward to the detriment of his numbers. Like I feel like he's going to try and, just sort of not be very aggressive, just to sort of, hey, I want to be, earn my keep here. And that also might be a little bit of a detriment because if he could figure out that balance between being part of a team and a five-man, a cog in a wheel, and also standing out and doing what he does best, if he can figure that balance out, then that's when they're going to be at their best. And that's going to be the huge conundrum for Stevens. But you're right. I bet you at some point the opportunity is going to open itself up when they do play poorly against, 2 or 3 of the best teams with that starting lineup they have now.
So you talk about playing some better competition down the road. The next 3 games don't really present that. You've got the Hawks on Friday night, the Pistons on Saturday, and then Phoenix comes to Boston on Wednesday. But then after that, on December 21st.
Wait a minute. That sounds like the Sixers schedule for the first half of the season.
Don't even. We'll get to the Sixers.
Right. The Jazz are upset, by the way, when they hear those teams.
Of course they are.
So they've got the Bucks on the 21st, which presents their first, pretty legitimate team in a while, and then they've got the Sixers on Christmas. In terms of the Eastern Conference right now, of course, there's still a lot of development going on with some of these teams. Who do you see as the biggest threat in the Eastern Conference, and who's going to be towards the top as we go down the road here?
Well, it just so happens that I did a video yesterday on the Raptors beating the Warriors. And I dropped the gauntlet in that one, saying that they are the absolute favorites to make it to the finals. Yep. The way they are playing now is better than anybody by far in the East. And that was without Kawhi Leonard on the second of a back-to-back on the road. That doesn't happen often, and they beat him soundly. So, and that was with the Warriors pretty much healthy. So you have to be extremely concerned about the Raptors, and they could easily make a lot of people in Boston upset, considering how excited they were to start the season.
Well, and considering the fact a lot of Celtics fans feel like Danny should have went harder after Kawhi.
Was that really a thing? They really could have gotten him?
I don't know if it was. It was a thing. It's also a thing in a lot of Celtics fans' minds that they can still go get Anthony Davis at the trade deadline.
Legally they can't.
So I'm not sure if it was a real thing. What do you, sticking with the Eastern Conference feel? What are your thoughts on the Sixers right now? Of course, they got Jimmy Butler, which helped add to their depth, but their shooting depth still concerns me a little bit. What do you think about them going down the road?
There's something missing. I can't quite figure out what it is because, they've added some guys like Shamet is a good shooter, and I hope he continues to get some minutes and provide spacing. They have Redick. They have guys, but you're right. Ultimately, in the playoffs, when you have a team that's ready to prepare for days and days, when you have a guy like Simmons, it's like we saw what happened in the playoffs last year. They can sag off of him enough. They can sag off of Embiid, even though he shoots threes a little bit, that you can really create problems with spacing with the kind of offense they want to run. And then that's the problem is you still got to be able to score in the playoffs. It's not going to be about, defense completely. And if you can't generate enough good shots, then you're going to get beat in a 7-game series. So, it kind of almost feels like, will they ever be able to get where they want to go with Simmons playing the kind of role he does? It's an interesting conundrum. And either that or he simply will improve. Like we've seen, most good players over their careers do tend to improve their jump shot. So that might be the solution.
I just want to step back. So you think no chance, it is 100% at this point in the season, Toronto by far is ahead of the Celtics and everybody else in the East. So it's Toronto and everybody else.
I mean, as of today, yeah, that's how I feel.
Interesting. I mean, it's interesting because I don't think it's not crazy given their roster, Toronto. I just think the Celtics, if they could get it, and I sound like a homer, but if they could get it together, I mean, the talent is just off the charts.
I mean, that is true, but, think about it this way. As of today, like if I'm going by what we just saw, like, I know they were at Washington, but it took them overtime, in a crazy, thrilling game to do it. It wasn't back-to-back. Now, they did beat the Pelicans the 2 days before that. But, so we've got, and they're going to be a trivia question of, what team was playing the Bulls when they completely imploded. So, so that's the only question I have. It's right. When you look at the Bulls, the Knicks, the Cavs, those wins, I'm still waiting to see whether or not they're going to do it. Whereas Toronto, at least for the whole season, has really just been excellent.
Yeah, and Toronto's role players have impressed me immensely. Obviously, we knew they had some good depth going into the season, but guys like Siakam and Danny Green and Serge Ibaka, Fred VanVleet, I mean, it seems like they have uber consistency from top to bottom on that roster. I mean, I don't really see any weaknesses per se. Of course, it's still relatively early. I mean, we're not approaching the All-Star break just yet, but they seem pretty scary. Do you think they have the best depth in the East as well?
Sure. I mean, they probably have the most improved player in Siakam, and they could have an MVP candidate in Kawhi if he gets enough games and they continue to win as much as they do. So, which I wonder if that's ever happened. I might have to tweet that out and find out if they've ever had a team that has the MIP and the MVP in the same year. You got Anunoby, who was a starter last year, who was struggling, but certainly has the experience to really perform for them in crunch time in the playoffs. So, yeah, they are deep. They are long. They have really great defense, and they can score. I mean, Lowry isn't even scoring that well, but that might actually be the key for them. Rather than rely on the guy to score 20 points a game and then get to the playoffs and be disappointed, he's scoring about 14 and a half, but he's leading the league in assists. Yeah. So suddenly it's different in the varied attack, and with Kawhi being their star, that I think that might be the solution for them. There's no question that if the Celtics are Mickey, then the Toronto Raptors are Clubber Lang.
Wow.
I like that.
I like that. There's
no, that's not wrong. I'm sorry. Celtics are Rocky, and then Brad Stevens is Mickey going to watch all the fights that Clubber Lang is having in the montage.
There's your headline, Grenham.
Yeah, that's
there's
perfect.
Your headline.
I love that.
The only thing is, all the millennials won't get it. Who's Rocky?
Which is,
Who's
hey, watch it. I'm a millennial right here. I get that.
You're in the minority. Most
the guy
of
in Creed.
Creed.
Oh, man, yeah.
Anybody who hasn't seen Rocky 3, I mean, if you haven't, then you got to go out and rent it right now.
You're an idiot. That's the best Rocky by far.
When I was a
Rocky
kid,
4 is a joke. Everybody loves Rocky 4.
Okay, when I was a kid, so I loved Rocky 3. I loved all the Rocky movies when I was younger, but I loved Rocky 4 with the Russian.
Oh, come on, every kid did.
And I loved it, and my dad thought it was like such a shame. I think it was the most disappointed my father's ever been in me.
It's a cheese show.
I liked Rocky 4 better than I liked Rocky 1, 2, and 3. I thought it was
1, 2, and 3 were sick. And I think that this whole, not to really get us off track here, but of course that's what I do. This whole Creed thing now with Drago's kid, like this is ridiculous. So now they're going to ruin that because I liked Creed 1. I thought it was great. Coach, you mentioned MIP, MVP. Who's the only team that had MVP and Defensive Player of the Year? Same player.
Oh, is that Cowens?
No, it's your boy, Michael Jordan, 88, man.
Oh,
MVP,
God.
Defensive Player of the Year. Come on.
You know what's funny? Because Michael missed out on all those MVPs just because of, like, fatigue or whatever, just like LeBron. Right. So it's like I can't remember. But, wow, okay, that was a great –
I think it was 88 or 89.
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year, MVP. And it could have been KG in 08. They were close. I think he was in the running. He was Defensive Player of the Year, but I think he was in the running for MVP, too.
Yeah, well, the millennials have forgotten about MJ too. I guess so have I.
Nick, talk to us. I mean, we could turn this into a Rocky podcast too.
I have no problem with it.
I'm all about that. Nick, talk to us a little bit about the B-Ball Breakdown podcast. You've been teaming up with Jared Weiss a little bit lately,
Scary.
our friend of
Very
the program. Scary. Talk to us a little bit about the podcast. How's it going over there?
It's going great. I mean, we do at least one a week where we dive into what's happening on the court, and Jared has been great. He's been on the show often, And I was looking for a guy to come on, just be my weekly guy, and he was available. And we've always had a great rapport. So it's great because he's got a lot of the insider information, and I have all sort of the X's and O's stuff. So it's a nice balance where you're going to get, what I'm doing here versus just like, the Stephen A. who's talking about someone who hadn't. Did you see that? He's talking
incredible.
About these two players in the NFL who hadn't even
didn't even exist. Yeah.
Teddy Bruschi's face was priceless.
Yeah. Picture, it's is
that the guy in the middle or the guy in the end?
Yeah, guy in the middle.
Okay.
Bringing up race with the coach. Yeah. I mean, just come on, Stephen A.
Right. So it's like, you listen to a lot of these podcasts and a lot of these radio shows as well, and you can tell that that's how they're prepared. Someone is like giving them a little briefing, whatever, and I guarantee you Stephen A. Smith either fired the producer or give him an earful after that.
Could you imagine? Especially on
but,
TV, Coach. I mean, on radio, you tend to freelance a little more, but on TV, you know what's coming at you. That's Stephen A.'s fault.
Okay, fair enough. And so, so that's what we don't do that on my show. Like, for instance, for this, I'm not going to talk about the Celtics if I haven't watched 100 or 200 clips of them, but before I go on, I really want to have a sense of what's happening, and so that's what we do with the show. So when we're prepared, and we have a nice balance, and Jared and I have a nice rapport. So it's been fantastic for the last 2 or 3 weeks so far, and I'm looking forward to finishing the season with it.
That's another Gelso matchmaker, Weiss and Coach Nick. I love that. I should get matchmaker of the year.
Cupid Nick, it's perfect.
People don't realize Jared Weiss, as obnoxious. I love the kid. I know him since he's friggin' 18 years old. But as obnoxious as he could be, his knowledge base of the Celtics is very – I mean, his NBA knowledge is off the charts. He's not just a Celtics guy. And people don't see that because his reporting at The Athletic – and with our company, Celtics Blog in the past has always been Celtics-based. So to hear him on your podcast talking general NBA is a hoot, man. It's a ball.
Yeah, and he really is great and knows about his stuff, and he won't go on unless we know exactly what we're going to talk about that day, and he can research and get into it. So that's another great reason to listen to it for sure. And thank you for we got together in at the 2015 conference finals.
I think both of you guys covered the Cavs series for me, didn't you?
Yeah. So we did some on camera stuff. It was really fun. So
we got to do that again this year for sure. Yep.
Awesome. So you can check them out at BBALLBreakdown on Twitter. Follow Coach Nick as well at BBALLBreakdown on YouTube, and check out the BBALLBreakdown pod with Jared Weiss. Nick, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
You got it. As I said, I'm in.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for coming in. I'm in too.
This is Jeff Goodman, host of the Good and Plenty podcast on the CLNS Media Network. We've got two podcasts. Every Tuesday, we've got the NBA edition. Anyway, I've known Boogie a long time, and I like him now. We didn't get along forever.
Hold on. Since you bringing up Boogie, Jeff, have you told the story you and Boogie's interaction a few times? That would make for golden podcast material right there.
When he cornered me coming out of STK in Vegas. Every Thursday, we've got the College Hoops edition where you'll find the top coaches, players, media people. You get insight that you will not find anywhere else. So subscribe to the Good and Plenty podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or find us on www.clnsmedia.com.